honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this hour. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You know, you've heard me mention many times that one of the problems that we have as a collective group is that for whatever reason, Americans, and I don't think it's exclusively related just to Americans, but people in general have a tendency to create their opinions or accept and parrot other folks' opinions. And as a result of that, what oftentimes happens is that they don't have any solid foundation for their beliefs and their convictions, which means that at the first sign of a storm, one of two things happens. Either they understand that they have made a mistake and they're willing to acknowledge that and change their opinion, or, as is the case with most Americans or most people, they will staunchly defend even that which they know to be, at this point, provably wrong. And I found a quote yesterday that I thought, quite frankly, summed it up very well. Opinions are not to be learned by rote, like the letters of an alphabet or the words of a dictionary. They are conclusions to be formed, and formed by each individual in the sacred and free citadel of the mind, and there enshrined beyond the arm of law to reach or force to shake, and beyond the right of impertinent curiosity to violate or presumptuous arrogance to threaten. It was Francis Wright. He was a Scottish author and a speaker. I posted that quote up on our Facebook page because I thought it adequately expressed the importance of, one, having and formulating your own opinion based on having enough information to create and formulate an informed opinion and decision. When we parrot other people's opinions, we simply are stating our own ignorance, because when someone attempts to explore your reason for having that opinion, you have no defense for it. And having no defense for an opinion essentially just means that you've accepted someone else's and are now repeating it. The problem with that is that because human nature inherently never wants to be wrong, and most people are unwilling to admit that they're wrong when they are, we find that literally the vast majority of folks are unwilling to change an opinion that they know to be wrong. Now, most often I think this occurs when someone has adopted an ideology or a belief system that they've followed for the vast majority of their life, completely unaware of the fact that they've absorbed or are basically repeating back and acting as nothing more than a sounding board for an opinion from someone else that they've adopted. By questioning those people about what their beliefs constitute, you can often find that they have no foundation for it. In other words, when people say to you, well, I believe this or I believe that about a political situation or an issue or an ideology, and you question them and you say, well, why do you believe that? Most often, you'll find that people don't have a solid basis for their beliefs. And oftentimes, they'll quantify that by saying, well, so-and-so said it, or I learned it here, or I read it there, and therefore it's true. Well, that is an opinion that was learned by rote. In other words, these are opinions that are formulated by people who are effectively just learning something, but without understanding the true ramifications or the underlying concepts beneath them. And if you ask enough probing questions, almost invariably you can identify why someone feels that way. And more often than not, it turns out they feel that way because of something that they heard somewhere, or they learned at home, or they learned at school. But they've never really taken the time to understand and think beyond that most basic concept that we have of, oh, well, that sounds good to me. They've never thought about the unintended consequences of their opinions or their ideologies or their ideas. Often they just believe, well, this is what I've been taught, this is the right thing. And people do that, by the way, not just about politics and ideology. They do it about religion. They do it about social issues. They do it about everything that they have learned throughout their entire lifetime. When I hear someone say, well, I've read it in the Bible, and I believe it's true, I actually have to, at sometimes in my own mind, question, well, have they read the entire context, or they just read an isolated passage? Or, your obligation as a thinking and rational being is to question everything, whether it be religious, whether it be political, whether it's social, whether it's ideological. Your obligation as a thinking and inquiring, I hate to use the term inquiring mind, but that is the gift that God has given us, to think rationally, to think logically. And I have to tell you, when you read something that helps you to formulate an opinion, part of our critical thinking process should be to expand that thinking to understand why we think that way. In other words, have extra firewood or kindling to not only start the fire, but to keep the fire going. Have ammunition in your kit bag to express and explain why you believe something. Now, we're not talking about any specific one belief. What we are talking about is beliefs and ideas and concepts in general. It's important, and this goes back to my earlier comment on if I read something in the Bible and I believe it's true. And I'm not suggesting that the Bible is not true. What I'm saying to you is that what you need to do is make sure that when you believe something, you can adequately express why you believe that something. You must be able to support your position with facts and or, if they're not direct facts, correlating evidence that supports the conclusion you've drawn. You understand? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, in black and white, but you better be able to back up the argument that you've made. Because if you can't do that, then you are guilty of doing nothing other than learning an opinion by rote. We don't formulate opinions by rote. We form and formulate these based on gathering information and then making the decision based on the information that we've been provided. The next step in that process, by the way, is that when new information comes to light, we must be ready, willing, and able to modify our belief based on the new information. Not just on a single fact or a single factoid, but when empirical evidence shows its head, we need to be willing ready and willing and able to accept that and modify our position. We'll talk a little bit more about this after the break, and then I want to touch on a couple of stories. More than happy to take your phone calls if you've got some thoughts or ideas about what we just spoke about. I'd love to hear them. You can call us at 257-1111. We'll be right back.
West Plains is your headquarters for getting and being prepared. Natural disasters, civil unrest, personal and family protection, long-term sustenance, and most importantly, peace of mind. Berkey bottles and home-sized water purification systems, survival food, MREs, freeze-dried food, survival knives, lanterns, ammunition, military sleep systems, and of course, batteries of all shapes and sizes. Take charge of your own survival and security. The Battery Station, 303 Washington and West Plains, 417-257-7790. or batterystation.com.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
The nightmare, the monstrosity that is Obamacare is going to be run by the nightmare, the monstrosity that is the Internal Revenue Service. I wonder if they're going to have a determinations unit examining all Obamacare decisions. Excuse me, pathologist? Really? Well, send us some x-rays first. Oh, and, are you a member of the Tea Party?
Weeknights from 5 till 8, Mark Levin on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
So the idea of formulating belief systems, and I want to specifically relate this to our opinions that we form related to our political ideologies, is that we make sure that we have enough information to accurately formulate an opinion and then support that opinion with documented real-world facts. Not other opinion, not innuendo, not suggestions. You see, opinions formed by other opinions are invariably wrong, because if you follow that path backward, at some point, someone's opinion was wrong, and it's affected the outcome of your current opinion today. Is that clear? In other words, if you formulated your opinion today based on other opinions that you've gathered from the past, any one of those opinions that was wrong invariably leads you to have an incorrect conclusion today. It's like a mathematical equation that's got 20, 30 steps in it. If step number 7 was wrong, the answer, even no matter how many steps further you take it, is going to be wrong. And we have to be willing and able and capable. And by the way, we have to let our armor down long enough, our own personal armor, to say, I've been wrong. Now, I'm going to tell you where you see this exhibited the most frequently. It's in these blind ideologists who believe that socialism is the path to, some fantastical land that we're all headed towards. It's this utopian fantasy that government in its largesse can actually solve all of our problems. Now, there's enough empirical evidence out there to refute that. I mean, in fact, the evidence is overwhelmingly against drawing that conclusion. And yet, most people are happily ignorant, and perhaps purposely, willfully so, in the sense that they don't think about the consequence of their opinion. They just say, well, let's just institute this. But they never think about what are the long-term ramifications of that. What happens if we do that? I saw an article the other day that people were actually stopping on the street. Some liberal group had put up a thank you card on the street. And the thank you card was a thank you to the IRS for investigating Tea Party, 9/11 or 9/12 and Patriot groups that had applied for 501c4 tax exemption. And everyone universally acknowledges, at least those who are intellectually honest, everyone universally acknowledges that what the IRS did was wrong, irrespective of your political ideology. And I would be the first one to stand up and say that if this was a conservative administration that had done that to a liberal group, I would have a problem with it. I have a problem with using the IRS as a weapon. I don't care which side of the political fence you're on. But you see, these people actually were stopping on the side of the road and signing this card. Their ideology, unfounded, unsupported, and uninformed, actually had them do something which, quite frankly, they didn't think of the long-term consequences or the unintended consequences of that belief system. Here's why. Let's just assume, for argument's sake, that something changes the program here and gravity comes back to Earth and things go back to the way they ought to be. I know that's impossible, so don't misunderstand me. We're just thinking in a hypothetical sense here. Let's just play this hypothetical war game. Let's war game this out. Suppose, for example, that America becomes an ethical, moral, honest, intellectually honest nation again, and you have someone on the right side of things, and when I say right, I mean politically right, not correct, who now utilizes the IRS to demonize and to demagogue and injure and investigate the liberal groups out there. Now, they'd be the first ones to be hooting and hollering in the streets. And people who will willingly sign that card have clearly not thought the long-term ramifications of what, in other words, it's like saying it's okay to profile as long as you're not profiling me. Now, these are the self-same people that will stand up and scream, profiling is never good against an illegal alien. And you can't profile Muslim extremists. But it's okay to profile American patriots who believe in the Constitution. You see, there's a dichotomy, there's a split in their intellectual process. You can't have a position and be hypocritical about it if you expect that position to ever be adopted or accepted or supportable. You can't. Your position must be firm and secure in its stand, in its grounding, irrespective of which way the wind blows. You better be just as willing to die with your boots on for the free speech of a liberal as you are for the free speech of a conservative. You better be just as willing to allow someone to exercise their religious belief, even though it is diametrically opposed to yours, as you are to express your own. You see, we can't have it both ways. We're either all in or we're all out. And there is no gray. America always wants to have their cake and eat it too. And most people don't recognize the thought process or the failure of their thought process to properly analyze what comes after based upon whatever their thinking may have been. What are the consequences of this process or this action I'm taking today? Congress is guilty of this every single day. Every single day. They make a law, they get it passed. Invariably, within a short period of time, they find out that something's wrong with the way in which they created it. There's a loophole. Someone's taken advantage of it. And then they pass more legislation to try to close the loophole. Invariably, they've opened another loophole with that one, and someone who's creative and has good lawyers or good accountants figures out a way around that one. I mean, it's just the nature of human nature to beat the system. And Congress, instead of recognizing what their limitations of control are and ought to be, will just keep on passing more and more and more and more and more. That's why we have hundreds of thousands of laws on the books, of most of which don't even make sense. They conflict with each other. They contradict each other. You can't get 6 lawyers. If you get 6 lawyers in a room and you try to get them to identify and evaluate an existing piece of legislation, invariably you get 7 answers, and there's only 6 lawyers. The problem is that people are unwilling to create and formulate an opinion based on investigation and homework. And, opinions are easy to form. We form them every moment. You formulate an opinion when you watch a car drive down the road. You formulate an opinion when you see a guy walking down the street. You formulate an opinion when you watch a commercial on TV. It's that fast. Your mind does it instantaneously. And I get it. It's a chore to sit back and a burden, actually, to try to evaluate, why did I formulate that opinion? Now, let's be candid. A lot of this doesn't really matter. You formulate an opinion about the way someone walks down the street, and you think of that guy's wearing a hoodie and he slouches, and you think to yourself, man, that guy's a bum. That doesn't really have an overall impact on the universe. But when you formulate an opinion about something which affects those around you, like your political beliefs or your religious beliefs or your social beliefs, then you have to take into account and ascertain, did I create this or did I form this opinion with the right information, or have I just done this snap judgment that, quite frankly, may be wrong? And I'll tell you why you got to make that. Because if you don't make that formulation now, human nature tells us, and historically we know this to be a fact, you won't change it later when the proof exposes itself. That's the simple truth. In other words, your opinion, once it's formed, is almost impossible to change. It's like trying to get an incumbent out of office. It's almost impossible. It's not impossible, but it's pretty doggone hard. So what we have to do is consistently make sure that every time we formulate an opinion, we're not formulating it based on inaccurate information that we've already adopted for some other reason, from some bias that we have. When you read an article and you learn something new, don't just accept it at face value. That's someone else's opinion. Don't learn your opinion by rote, like the letters of an alphabet or the words of a dictionary. Formulate and create your conclusions in the sacred and free citadel of your mind. In the sacred and free citadel of your mind. Recognize that your mind is a computer, vastly complex and far more complex than anything man has ever created. You can process more thoughts in 1 second than a supercomputer can process in a decade. They can only work on one thing at a time. Human beings have the capability and the wherewithal to multitask, to work on various aspects simultaneously, to take into account the unknown, to take into account the variable that the computer can never grasp. That's the beauty of the gift of your mind. And whether you perceive that gift to be given to you by God, or by nature, or by nature's God, or just by happenstance if you're an atheist, irrespective, we owe it a certain amount of not only respect, but observance to the idea that garbage in equals garbage out. If we put trash into our minds, then our opinions are automatically biased based on the false information we've taken in. So when you read something or you hear something, our job, our goal should always be to investigate further. Can we find something else that is either confirming or denying the existence of that thing that we believe to be a fact or are about to believe to be a fact? It's part of the critical thinking process that we go through. as human beings. Every one of us does it every single day, hundreds and thousands of times a day. Your job is to narrow that down to figure out the ones that are the most important and have an effect not only on your own thinking, but on those around you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I don't want to get super philosophical, but we'll cover a couple of other issues.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann says she will not run for a fifth term next year.
Be assured, my decision was not in any way influenced by any concerns about my being reelected to Congress.
And she says in that video on her website it has nothing to do with the federal inquiry into last year's Republican presidential campaign, that she doesn't believe any rules were broken. The Pakistani Taliban denies its number 2 commander was killed in a U.S. drone strike, but Pakistani intelligence officials say he was. An ominous weather forecast.
The storm system yet again getting all the ingredients together for another severe weather outbreak stretching anywhere from Texas all the way into portions of the state of Minnesota and even across sections of the Northeast. If you live in the Northeast, we're really talking about a concern in terms of damaging winds in excess of 60 miles an hour and also some large hail.
That's Fox meteorologist Maria Molina. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Visit our outstanding sponsors, West Plains Pawn, located on Route 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. West Plains Pawn can be found on the web at westplainspawn.com. You can also reach them via telephone at 417-256-3000. The battery station at 303 Washington Avenue, right off the square in West Plains. They can be reached via telephone at 417-257-7799. They can also be found on the web at batterystation.com. My friends at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. Brian can be reached at 870-492-4030, and he's located at 3225 Route 62, 1/2 mile east of Walmart in Mountain Home. Make sure that you visit our friends over at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner Boulevard in West Plains. They have an outstanding lunch special buffet. You can have salad as well as pizza and other pasta, so you can have something tasty and something healthy. Bill Stone over at Stone Construction at 2930116. Bill Stone does remodeling, custom and new construction, light commercial, farm work, pretty much the gamut. If you're interested in doing some kind of a new project, make sure that you give Bill Stone at Stone Construction an opportunity to bid on that job. And my dear friend, Mary, over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, number 2 Evans Arcade, right off the square in West Plains. She can be reached via telephone at 255-2253. She's got the best damn bakery in 100 miles. And thanks so much to our phone line sponsor, Jason over at Wits End Classic Barbershop. You can call us on the Wits End Classic Barbershop hotline. He is on the square in West Plains. Excellent opportunity for you to get your hair cut. Get over there and visit.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. The next governor of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli. The current senator from South Dakota, John Thune. I'll also be joined by Bill Kristol, and we'll talk with all of them about immigration reform and what is ahead in the United States Senate, and Marco Rubio. Don't miss any minute of the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, a clear sky, mostly sunny throughout the day today, our high 84 degrees. Partly to mostly cloudy tonight with a slight chance for a thunderstorm late, low 66. Tomorrow's going to be a variably cloudy day with showers and thunderstorms developing, some of those storms heavy and potentially severe. I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi. For more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
I had this illness that really made me powerless over alcohol, and that insisted that I got drunk. And so I got drunk. It doesn't have anything to do with trying to control it. An alcoholic who picks up the first drink will pick up the second drink. I can't say to anyone, no, don't drink. But I can say that when you decide you don't want to drink, come to AA. The door to AA is always open. Alcoholics Anonymous. It works. Look us up. Check your phone book, newspaper, or AA.org.
All right, I want to break on a couple of other issues here, which are kind of related to the first half of the first two segments of the show. You know, there's an announcement out this morning that the new immigration bill is close to 1,600 pages. there's arguments out there. They're arguing whether it's 1,000, 1,200, 1,300, 1,500, 16. Here's the point that you need to recognize. It doesn't matter how many pages it is. Our entire Constitution and the Bill of Rights is, 6 or 8 pages? Really? And you're going to create an immigration bill that's over 1,000? I mean, here's the problem. You can bet that the number of tyranny and treasonous acts that go into that bill that are meant and designed and geared to destroy the United States from the inside out is directly correlated to the number of pages. You exactly heard me right. The Gang of Eight. Gang of Eight. Who's who the Gang of Eight is, by the way? Marco Rubio. Pathetic and shameful. I don't know anybody, by the way, who's touting Marco Rubio as the next potential president of the United States. Let me clarify for you, for the record. He's got the same birth problem as Obama. So stop with that noise. Second one, Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is a long-term traitor to the United States of America. He is not only that, but he's a warmongering piece of trash. Jeff Flake from Arizona and John McCain from Arizona. I can't say enough bad things about John McCain. I can't. John McCain should have removed himself from the Senate 20 years ago. Here's a guy who spent Monday, Memorial Day, hobnobbing with Al-Qaeda terrorists because they're now Syrian rebels. So, for the record, as far as John McCain and I are concerned, we got nothing further to discuss. And then Chuck Schumer, well, anybody who listens to anything from the sewer mouth of Chuck Schumer should basically just open their mouth in front of the fire plug of liberal vomit. And then Dick Durbin. This is the guy, Dick Durbin, this is the scumbag that went out there and betrayed everybody in the Obamacare debacle, and Michael Bennett and Bob Menendez. Bob Menendez, the Democrat from New Jersey, this is a shameful human being who should be embarrassed to actually expose himself on camera for a host of reasons, but not the least of which is, one, he is, for all intents and purposes, should be, and he and Marco Rubio, by the way, and if you just want to take this as an argument, because of the fact that both of these guys are foreign born, they should be recusing themselves from this process.
Of course they should be.
So, I mean, the ridiculousness of this thing, the article says the new bill towers over previous versions, clocking in at 1,076 pages. They're saying the final version will be 1,500 pages. Here's my problem with this entire issue. Our entire Constitution and Bill of Rights is somewhere between 6 and 8 pages, depending upon the size of the paper you print it on. We formulated a nation based on that. And these lame ducks are going to go out there and try to show us that for 1,000 to 1,500 pages, they're going to fix the immigration issue. Here's the problem. Before immigration gets passed, the one and only thing that needs to happen is that our borders need to be verifiably sealed, and all illegals have to register with the federal government and or state governments before any bill on immigration is passed at all. Until that occurs, no discussion can be had. And we better make that very, very abundantly clear to the representatives in the House, because the senators who are working on this, the Gang of Eight, is the gang of thugs who actually are trying to ram this thing down our throats. And no matter how you couch it, no matter how you cut it, this is going to add somewhere between 20 and 50 million new citizens who are going to have unlimited access to all of the resources, not to mention the voting capabilities of the United States of America. And they're going to dramatically shift the reins of power from one side to the other. Now, that's really the ultimate goal. And so the first thing I say is no immigration bill, period, until the entire nation has been, and every border that we have, north and south, has been verifiably sealed, and that no one gets anything until every illegal who is in the nation has registered with state and federal governments. We need to know who they are, where they are, what they're doing, how they got here, how long they've been here, and that is our obligation. That's our right to know. It's our nation. It's our country. We have a right to know why you're sleeping in our bed, Goldilocks. And until that question is answered, we have nothing further to discuss. The immigration bill can wait. It's waited for 100 years already. And the fact of the matter is that there are already laws out there that allow us to expel these immigrants when they get here. But no one's bothering to follow the law that's out there. So why pass another 1,500-page debacle? Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, you talk about the Constitution and how we have all these other bills that are coming out. I think we need to go ahead and go back to this very indicative premise that we have, that somehow we're bringing democracy to the rest of the world, that we have 150 countries out of 213 odd countries in the entire planet. So 75% of the world has been taken over by us militarily with a military installation in 150 different countries. But the biggest thing I think is really interesting is that you mentioned the Constitution. I mean, we have this Bill of Rights. It's one page.
Yeah.
And a Constitution that is so limited that it doesn't have a bunch of legal scramble in it, that somehow we are in the, I mean, we've been told this lie, which is a very, very, very debatable lie, because they say, you know, all this legal rams is of you know, legalese, if you will, about why we need to have it more. We need to have more pages. But the constitutions that have been introduced in Afghanistan and Iraq and other countries that we've been around in the world, including Japan, they're thousands of pages long. Why?
Well, and I'm going to go you one step further. Our own Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg came out and publicly stated that if she were setting up a new country, she would not use our Constitution as a template.
Right. Why?
Now, first of all,
why?
Right off,
so good.
Right off the bat,
we have to do this all around the country, all around the world, and we're just force-feeding everybody. Why is it that we have to have something different than what we have? Because you have the answer now.
The simple truth is this, that, first of all, as far as immigration goes, and by the way, this goes back to my earlier point. As far as immigration goes, no law, no new immigration rules until we verifiably seal the borders and everyone who's in the country registers. That's the end of the argument. After that, we can have any conversation you want. But until that occurs, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
Okay? And every one of you who is listening to the sound of my voice today should be making that abundantly clear to your House member, because the Senate's going to pass this because they've got a majority of traitors in their ranks. And we need to make it clear to the House that under no circumstances can any immigration, their whole clarion call should simply be this: no immigration until the borders are verifiably sealed and all illegals have registered. After that, we can have any discussion you want. Period. That's the quote. That's the only message that John Boehner and the group in the House ought to be pushing back to the Senate. You guys can pass whatever you want up there, but we're not passing a damn thing until the borders are verifiably sealed and every illegal in the nation who exists today has registered.
Michael, they have that border going up down south, you know. But as you notice, you know, it's
I don't care if it's a fence. I don't care if it's I've advocated for a no man's land, 2 fences being built with a no man's land of mines in between. And I'm serious about it. I'm not
DMZ like they have in Korea.
Well, look, it's the simple truth is this: we are overwhelmed, and it is a violation of law. It is a violation of our national law, and it is a violation of our basic societal requirements and needs to have literally tens of millions of hangers-on who are bleeding the dog to death. And the simple truth is the ticks now outweigh the dog, and the dog is no longer able to stand up. He's so weakened by the blood loss at this point that he can't even defend himself.
And trying to go ahead and get something to eat in the meantime.
Hey, I've got to jump. There's a commercial break coming. Thank you for the call. I appreciate your opinion.
Hey, I have one quick question.
Quickly.
What do you think is going to happen if we actually do resist this, and we don't have that immigration law passed, what'll happen?
Well, I'll have to take it up with you after the break.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines up for other callers. What I wanted you to, and how this draws back to our earlier point is really simple. These people are writing a 1,500-page bill because they're trying to cover all the unintended consequences that may crop up. What they don't know is for every toothpick that they close off, there's an entire forest behind it. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
The Battery Station in West Plains is your headquarters for getting and being prepared. Natural disasters, civil unrest, personal and family protection, long-term sustenance, and most importantly, peace of mind. Berkey bottles and home-sized water purification systems, survival food, MREs, freeze-dried food, survival knives, lanterns, ammunition, military sleep system, and of course, batteries of all shapes and sizes. Take charge of your own survival and security. The Battery Station, 303 Washington and West Plains, 417-257-7799 or batterystation.com.
If you're looking for great deals on iPads or Kindles, look no further than your neighborhood Radio Shack authorized sales center. They've got great deals on the latest iPads and Kindles. Maybe you need a new GPS or an MP3 player to get your music library ready for those barbecues. Whatever your electronic needs, stop by your local neighborhood Radio Shack authorized dealer in West Plains at 1408 Southern Hills Shopping Center or call 417-256-1819.
I once lassoed a shooting star that dragged me into a U.S. cellular store where I saved $100 on a 4G LTE Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1. Yeah, right. $100 savings on the newest Galaxy Note tablet? Crazy talk.
Get great deals on all our Galaxy devices like $100 off the 4G LTE Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 tablet. U.S. Cellular. Hello better. Certain restrictions apply. Applicable data plan required. New 2-year agreement and $35 device activation fee may apply. See store for details.
SAH Printing at 204 Porter Wagner Boulevard is the best place to get your custom screen-printed t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hats for the spring and summer sports seasons. Whether it's baseball, softball, or soccer, whether you're a Zizzer, Hornet, Panther, or Rocket, let SAH Printing make sure your t-shirt game is up to par. Just stop by 204 Porter Wagner Boulevard in West Plains or call 417-257-1642.
See, the problem here, folks, is that these politicians allow themselves to be ideologically dishonest and intellectually dishonest. There's no way that you can write a bill that covers all aspects of what the unintended consequences of illegal immigration can be. And to that caller's earlier question of what do I think will happen if we don't have an immigration bill, I mean, the same thing that's been happening all along. We're going to continue to get this flood of immigrants. But I can tell you this, that the Border Patrol has stated that the number of immigrants since the discussion of an immigration bill has been floated are up so dramatically that they've literally doubled, which means that they're now pouring over the border, the porous border, I might add, because they know that at some point amnesty is close. You see, they're looking at the finish line of the yellow tape at the finish line, just like Barack Obama and his whole entire elitist crowd are looking at the finish line of totalitarianism in the United States of America. So basically what we have here is a group of individuals who are working actively to destroy the infrastructure of the United States from the inside out. And our mantra and our clarion call should be very clear. No immigration bill until the borders are verifiably sealed and all illegals have registered. Anyone who does not register within a given amnesty window is immediately removable based on their failure to register. That means if someone gets pulled over, and if there's 6 months for them to register and they haven't registered during that 6 months, and in the 8th month they're pulled over driving, we don't even ask any questions. If you cannot show that registration document, you are ejected out of here like a clown out of a cannon in a circus. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Well, I think you pretty much answered it right there, Michael. if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. And that's
Well, I mean, look, at this point, we know that we can't continue to do what we've been doing. But at the flip side of the fence, I'm unwilling to accept a 1,500-page debacle with God only knows how many hidden little secrets inside of it. And there's no way that these Congress people are going to read this thing before they pass it. We all know that. So let's not even go there. I mean, look, you can make a very clear and simple immigration policy on about 4 or 5 sheets of paper. A couple of the basics are, 1, we seal our borders verifiably. 2, everyone who's here has a 6-month window in which to register. That way we can find them no matter what rock they're hiding under and let them know if you don't register within this 6-month period, irrespective of who you are, where you are, how long you've been here, how many family ties you have, you're ejected out of here out of a clown cannon. Okay? And then third, anyone who is here illegally, we will deal with you separately than we will deal with anybody else who tries to come in afterwards. But what we are going to make sure is that we open up our immigration to those people who actually will provide some level of benefit and value to our country. We can't just let in the people who are going to be resource hogs while simultaneously refusing access to those who want to come here and educate themselves and then stay here and be productive members of society who will actually provide some benefit to the community. And that's the policy we've taken. We allow all the chaff to come in, but none of the wheat. I mean, what the hell are we thinking? It makes no sense whatsoever.
That also means we get a large element like the criminal element. I mean,
of course we do. I mean, it's like the Cuban boat people was back in the 80s.
People, yeah.
You remember the Cuban boat people? I mean, Castro ejected his jails into these boats and sent them all over here. And look at the crime wave that we got when they all landed. My goodness, it took us 30 years to get over it. We're still not over it. We're only coming to the conclusion of it because half of those people are too old to be dangerous anymore. I mean, really. Why would we allow our nation to be assaulted this way? This is an invasion in slow motion. That's really what it is.
Yeah. The Roman Empire again.
And the simple
fall apart from inside, and then you get exposed to external threats like Mexico, Cuba,
right?
Whatever comes across the border from Canada.
But you
whatever's coming in on freighters.
But you see, here's the real issue, and this goes back to the earlier 2 segments of the show. This entire bill is intellectually dishonest because it never really gets down to the root of what this is really all about. All it tries to do is put a Band-Aid on an amputation and expects it to stop the bleeding. But what we don't know is that, what we don't know is what's in this thing. I mean, I don't care whether it's 867 pages or 1,076 or 1,600 or 1,200. The simple truth of the matter is our immigration policy is completely screwed up. But allowing these guys to screw it up even more, this is like taking a tangled pot of spaghetti and putting a beater in it. An egg beater. You're not going to improve it. You're never going to be able to straighten it out that way. I don't care how fast you whip it and how long you whip it for. Installing an egg beater into a pot of spaghetti will never help put it all back in the box straight again. And that's all they're doing here. These guys are nothing but a whisk. It's shameful. And they put out this, we represent America. The hell you do. Most Americans are just sick and tired of the whole immigration nonsense. We've been hearing about it for 50 years. Every president has promised that they'd fix it. Not a single one of them has. And the simple truth is we already have the laws on the books. I'm tired of hearing, this guy's been here for 40 years. He now has great-grandchildren here. Well, first of all, I don't know how you have great-grandchildren when you're 40, but whatever. And the simple fact of the matter is this. It doesn't matter that you've been here for 40 years. All that tells me is that you've gotten away with it for 40 years. But if you break out of jail and you're an innocent guy living for 40 years in the community and suddenly you're picked up by the fugitive police, that doesn't mean that you are exonerated, and it doesn't mean that you get a free pass to stay out of jail. And that's for our citizens. So why would we do it for a bunch of illegals who don't belong here, have already shown and exhibited their complete lack of interest in our laws, And, I mean, the whole thing to me is just, there's no common sense to it whatsoever. And that's the number one failure of Congress. There is no common sense in Congress at all. And the simple reason for it is this. They have been bought and paid for by so many special interests, so many special interest groups, and they're sitting there plotting and planning, oh my goodness, what can we do to get their votes? I mean, they shouldn't even be able to vote for the next 20 years entering the country illegally.
You know, when you
in fact, they should never be allowed to vote.
When you tell me that, it makes me think of what my father used to say, that the difference of an honest cop. An honest cop was a cop that when you bought them, they stayed bought. That might be part of the problem. Our congressmen don't stay bought once we bought them.
Yeah.
They're up for the highest bidder.
I got it. Hey, thank you for the opinion and call. I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, Mike, I noticed you called them a group of individuals banding together to destroy the nation. And used to be when there was several legislators appointed to study a subject matter, they were called a study group, a committee, or a task force. But now they like that word gang, which the definition, the most prominent definition, is a group of criminals or hoodlums who band together for mutual protection and profit.
Yeah, well,
I do appreciate their honesty, so they're telling us exactly what they're about.
Good point. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you, bud. You know, basically, and his point is well taken. You know, what we have is a gang of 535, right? 540 if you want to count the president and his closest cabinet advisors. We have a 540-member gang who has literally tens of thousands of lieutenants and consigliaries beneath them, and a bunch of hitmen and hit squads out there, and a lot of them with the IRS label on them. I mean, that's what America's descended to, gangland tyranny. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Real quick. I recently watched a movie that was, I mean, I'm not sure which one, an older Roman one that had gladiators and stuff fighting to death in the arena.
Yeah.
And, you know, I look at what's happening to America today, and that's all they're doing to us. They are keeping us busy and occupied, and that's it, so that we're,
right.
I mean, we're doing this and we're doing that, and they have us distracted on this and distracted on that. And they keep going over and over and over the same stuff, like the immigration, over and over and over.
Sure. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors to keep us from really recognizing what's going on. You know, I talked about that the other day, and I got a lot of feedback on it, some of it not so good, about sports, professional sports. You know, professional sports, as far as I'm concerned, is promoted so heavily by government, including the building of these massive stadiums at taxpayer expense and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
Because, and by the way, if you don't know, the NFL, the NHL, and all these national leagues of whatever, baseball and football and hockey and soccer, these are all tax-exempt organizations. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, we knew that.
So here's the kicker. These groups are given free rein in our society because it keeps what would ordinarily be a bunch of testosterone-filled men who would be, for all intents and purposes, angered at the results of what's happening in our nation, gives them another outlet for all of their frustration.
Right.
So,
well, I saw. I don't know if I have time. I saw a headline that said that they need to reduce the amount of money that each food stamp recipient receives at this point. And there was, on one website, there was 4,110 comments on that. And there was 20 comments on the tornado in Oklahoma.
There you go.
So,
yep.
Okay.
Hey,
Have
thank
a good
you.
day. Yeah, bye.
Appreciate you. Okay, folks, you've listened to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host here. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can also find this and every other show that we do on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Let's make sure that we keep in mind that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is when good men do nothing. See you tomorrow morning.
KBMB Birch Tree is the Ozarks best news talk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.